going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. You know who it is by now.
Jimothy.
Now, ladies and gents, I thought I would bring to you a very rogue deck profile. Now, the reason I'm bringing you this deck profile is mainly because I've got a huge tournament coming up on Sunday, a remote duel locals, and I just wanted to break away from the deck that I've been playing. I've been doing loads of test hands, and I just wanted a little bit of something different. So, without wasting any more time, ladies and gents, this is the profile, and what we're looking at today is Gimmick Puppets. Now, this is a super weird deck that focuses on spitting out rank 8 XYZ Dark Machine monsters, and it just does it's weird to say the least. So we've got triple copies of Gimmick Puppet Terror Baby. So this card allows you to, on normal summon, to special summon one Gimmick Puppet from your graveyard straight onto the field. Does not matter about level or rank, it's just one Gimmick Puppet monster. Now, what I will say is when this card hits the graveyard, you can actually banish it from the graveyard to make all your Gimmick Puppet monster effects spell speed 4. So it's super useful. You want to get this in the graveyard as quickly as possible, and it's one of your 5 normal summons. So yeah, triple Gimmick Puppet Terror Baby. Next, I have got some random rarities, ladies and gents. We've got double Gimmick Puppet Humpty Dumpty. Now, this is your other normal summon of the deck, and typically when he's summoned, he allows you to special summon one Gimmick Puppet monster from your hand. Not the most useful, it does deplete your resources, and obviously if you're playing into an established board, you can actually go neg on its summon. So yeah, double Gimmick Puppet Humpty Dumpty. Next, for a bit of consistency, we've got triple Gimmick Puppet Bisque Doll. Now, what Gimmick Puppet Bisque Doll allows you to do is special summon itself by discarding a Gimmick Puppet monster. You can also banish this card from the graveyard to allow any of your Gimmick Puppet monsters targeting protection. So it's quite useful in that sense. Obviously, it's a level 8, and you can actually use this card to go into any level 8 XYZ monster. So definitely a powerful card, to say the least. Next, we have triple copies of Gimmick Puppet Dreary Doll. Now, Dreary Doll is a nice special summon. She can special summon herself from the graveyard by banishing another Gimmick Puppet monster, but you are locked into only special summoning Gimmick Puppet XYZ monsters with this card, so you do need to be aware of that. She doesn't allow you to go into some of the generic rank 8s that we're playing in our deck, but it's definitely a nice boost to consistency, and it allows you to do a few recovery plays depending on your game state or your board state. Next, we have double copies of Gimmick Puppet Magnet Doll. Now, this is just basically an extender. It's a free special summon if your opponent controls a monster and you control a Gimmick Puppet monster. It hits the field, it's a level 8. Again, it can be used for any of the rank 8 XYZ monsters that we're going into. So it's just a nice little bit of an extender. Also, for an extender, this is kind of like an honorary Gimmick Puppet. I'm running double Gear Spring Spirit. Now, this card allows you to kind of special summon it if you control a monster in your graveyard that's at least machine and only machine monsters in your graveyard. So again, it's a nice extender. I was actually running this deck with Orcust because Orcust obviously focus on spitting out dark machine monsters, but I just couldn't find the effective synergy basically. So double double Gear Spring Spirit, very useful. Also, for another bit of an additional package that I'm running in the deck, I am actually running triple copies of Psychic Mega Cyber. Now, this card is basically a free summon. So if you control, if your opponent controls more spells and traps than you do, you can special summon this card straight onto the field. Again, it's a machine, so depending on your hand, you can actually use this for link plays, or you could just use it as a bit of pressure because it can actually attack over a few things at 2200 attack. It also allows you to tribute this card to be able to put one of your opponent's monsters in the spell and trap card zone as a continuous spell, as a continuous trap if you control Jinzo, and we are actually playing one copy of Jinzo as well just to accompany it. Now, this card is actually searchable as well as Psychic Mega Cyber with one of the cards that I'm going to go through in a moment, but this is just basically if I'm going second and playing against Outlich or any kind of back row variant, if they allow me to get Jinzo on board being one of the other normal summons in this deck or a tribute summon, then I can just kind of like just stun them out of using their trap cards basically. So yeah, nice little engine to be honest. It works pretty well, might I add. Also, for a little bit of a main deck presence, and I don't actually like to build decks without some kind of like main deck presence, at least like either a big beat stick or some kind of removal, because I hate being just stuck in basically summoning from the extra deck to be able to remove any of my opponent's monsters on field. So I've got one Desperado Barrel Dragon, and I've also got one Gimmick Okami, the dreaded Deluge Dragon. Barrel Dragon's a free summon if one of your cards gets, or one of your machine monsters gets popped, and it can actually pop a card if you flip a coin basically. Gimmick Okami just puts a lot of pressure on the board. It can special summon itself if the two monsters from the extra deck special summon onto the field, so at times this is very easy to get out, but you do need to be aware that you're locked into you can't actually use this for any kind of link plays depending on your board state, so you do need to bear that in mind. But it does actually have a bit of utility. It also allows you to gain some life points if you're playing in time by banishing one of your opponent's monsters when it leaves the field, so super useful. 2950 beat stick as well, so yeah, cannot be scoffed at. And for the hand traps, because this is a rogue deck, I am not too focused on playing any meta hand traps like Ash Blossom, for example. So I've just gone with the double Ghost Ogre, just because this is primarily a going second deck. It doesn't go second the best, but it does try its best to go second. And just having Ghost Ogre to remove some of your opponent's threats, basically, whether it be something on field, it just makes it a lot easier to be able to get in a lot of damage or even push for the OTK. So yeah, double Ghost Ogre. Next, ladies and gents, we are onto the spells and traps, and I've decided to go for 3 of the Condolence Puppet. Now, the reason I've gone for 3 is mainly because of its graveyard effect. If you control a Gimmick Puppet monster or XYZ monster, or just a general XYZ monster, you can actually banish this card from the graveyard to be able to allow that card not to be, well, to enable that card not to be destroyed by card effects whilst it's face up on the field. So it's a nice little bit of protection for your monsters. Also, you can actually use this card by being able to send monsters or Gimmick Puppet monsters from your deck to the graveyard equal to the number of monsters your opponent controls, special summon from the extra deck +1. So even if they don't control any monsters, you still can use this card to get basically an in-archetype Foolish Burial. So I've decided to max out on this card basically because you are literally going into your XYZ plays more times than not. You are going to end up with some kind of XYZ monster on the board, and just being able to protect it in any way is super useful. So triple Condolence Puppet. Next, we're also running double Junk Puppet. This is basically an in-archetype monster reborn. It is a once per turn. You can actually drop this down to 1, to be honest, to make this an even 40 deck, because it's at 41 at the moment. So double Junk Puppet. We're also running the 1 Perform Puppet. This card's nice. So basically, the reason why I use this is because if any of your Gimmick Puppet monsters get popped or destroyed on field, you can actually summon one of your Gimmick Puppet monsters that are banished, which allows for a nice little bit of a resource loop, especially with Druidal banishing the Gimmick Puppet monsters in order to special summon herself onto the field. So super useful in that sense. You can also banish a monster from your graveyard to be able to make all the Gimmick Puppet monsters that have levels equal to that level of that banished monster. So again, just a one-of in my opinion. Next, we are running the rank up magic spells, and we're running double rank up magic Numeron Force and 1 rank up magic quick chaos. So quick chaos is basically a quick play rank up magic, which allows me to go into some of my C monsters, which is counted at XYZ. Now, rank up magic Numeron Force, however, has a super ability. It basically negates all face up cards on the field once you actually resolve this card. So if you've got one of your Gimmick Puppet monsters on field and you actually activate this card and resolve it, you can actually, it's kind of like Dark Ruler no more basically for XYZ monsters. So super useful, very impactful, especially with Gimmick Puppet of Strings going into Gimmick Puppet of Dark Strings, which I'll talk about in a moment. So yeah, definitely a good card. Next up, we have double Law of the Cosmos. Now, this is just to supplement the Jinzo engine, ladies and gents. So you can activate this card, and your opponent has the option to set one trap from their deck straight onto the field, and if they do, then you can special summon Jinzo straight from your deck onto the field. If they decide not to set a trap, this card allows you to add a card that lists Jinzo specifically in its text. So Psychic Mega Cyber and Jinzo himself are the only cards that we run in this deck. So it's basically either an add to hand or it's a special summon from deck, so super useful in that sense, and it allows you to play through some of those heavy back row strategies. And then next up, just for some utility, we're running double machine dupe, because most of our, if not all of our Gimmick Puppet monsters, apart from Magnet though, have 500 or less attack. So machine dupe is always, well, more or less always live. And we're also running double trading for a little bit of draw power, as well as one pot of acquisitiveness. This is just because you do tend to banish quite a few of your Gimmick Puppet monsters, so being able to either target your own or even your opponent's cards, shuffle it in on a quick play nonetheless, and be able to draw one card is super useful. You more times than not going to be using it on your own monsters, just to get a bit of a nice +1, well, not even a +1, a nice break even, as well as recycling some of those resources. So yeah. And then finally we have one Puppet Parade, and we have got one Dimension Slice. A Puppet Parade can allow you to special summon Gimmick Puppet monsters equal to the number of your opponent's controlled monsters. And Dimension Slice is a nice, very nice utility. I actually stumbled across this card and I was thinking to myself, I've never seen this before. So basically, when a monster is special summoned to your field, you can target one card your opponent controls and banish it. Now, if it is an XYZ monster, you can actually activate this card the turn it was set. Now, this deck does focus on spitting out XYZ monsters, so if you do see this, you're highly likely to resolve it when you see it. So it is a nice little bit of removal, and again, this deck looks to go second, to be honest, and it doesn't do a good job of it, especially with the cards that we've got as a pure variant. Obviously, if you put some power cards in like Forbidden Droplets, Lightning Storm, all that kind of stuff, then it would function a lot more effectively. But this is just a nice little tech to be able to just banish one of your opponent's cards. It does target, so that is a little bit of a drawback, but hey, it is what it is. Okay, ladies and gents, we are on to the extra deck, and we are running double Gimmick Puppet Chimera Doll. Now, this is an interesting card. So what it allows you to do, when it's link summoned, you can actually add one Gimmick Puppet monster from your deck to your hand, and then if you control only Gimmick Puppet monsters, you can actually special summon that card. Now, you are locked into XYZ monsters the turn that you activate this effect, so you do need to be aware of your plays, but it doesn't actually hinder you too much, and it allows you to actually just go plus. You can also just use it as link fodder to just climb up into the one link 4 that we've got. But double Gimmick Puppet Chimera Doll, quite useful, especially in this deck. It is a very, very powerful card, to be honest. So yeah. We're also running one Cleethorpes Genius, especially with Machine Dupe. If you summon 2 cards to the zones this card points to, you can actually add a level 5 or higher machine monster, and we've got a load of those in this deck. So definitely an option if you see Machine Dupe, and a way to get one of your Gimmick Puppet monsters on board, as well as being able to have this card live. So definitely a nice inclusion. We're also running one amphibious swamp ship Ambler Whale. Now, the main reason why I've got this in the deck is because it serves as a bit of a utility. It allows you to recur one of your link monsters that's level 3 or lower, which we only play level 2, and also it allows you to destroy one card on the field by banishing itself if one of your link monsters gets destroyed. So it is super useful in that sense. It is a machine, it is fire, so you do need to be able to go into this first before you lock yourself into Gimmick Puppets, but nonetheless it is there. And if it gets sent off Maximus, for example, your opponent's playing Dogmatica, you can actually still use this and make utility out of this card. So yeah, it is a nice inclusion. Next up, we're on to the XYZs, and we're playing one Gimmick Puppet Gigantes Doll. Now, this is basically a mind control for 2, so you can detach 2 cards from this card, take control of 2 cards that your opponent controls, and then you can actually tribute this card and actually make those monsters, if they have a level 8. So it basically allows you to go into your XYZ plays. It does lock you into XYZ monsters, Gimmick Puppet XYZ monsters to be specific, and you can only attack with XYZ monsters. But nonetheless, being able to basically take 2 of your opponent's monsters and use them for your own XYZ fodder is super useful, and especially if you see Humpty Dumpty or Gimmick Puppet Terror Baby, you can actually go into this quite easily. So yeah. Next up, we got Gimmick Puppet of Strings. This is our main play, as well as one Gimmick Puppet C90 Gimmick Puppet of Dark Strings. Now, I would run 2 Dark Strings, but this card is actually quite expensive, to be honest. The quantities on it are low, hence why I've only got the one. But Gimmick Puppet of Strings basically allows you to put string counters on your opponent's monsters by non-targeting. And it also can blow up all monsters that have a string counter on the following turn, I believe. Gimmick Puppet of Dark Strings allows you to pop cards on the field that have string counters on them, and it actually allows you to do some burn damage equal to the monster with the highest original attack that you popped. It also gets a draw, and you can also put string counters on your opponent's monster and by detaching the material. So it is a very nice play. This is probably your main play that you're going to be going into, well, one of your main plays that you're going into. So yeah. For a bit of a very non-linear move, we've got number 88 Gimmick Puppet of Leo, as well as number C88 Gimmick Puppet of Disaster Leo. So there is a little bit of a cheesy way to win in this game. So Leo, basically you can detach a material and you can put a string counter, sorry, you can put a destiny counter on this card, and if you have 3 destiny counters on this card, you win the duel. So the only thing that comes to mind, which I have seen a few profiles do this, is basically play triple Mystic Mine and just try and resolve this card as quickly as possible. Typically your opponent's going to have a monster on field, and by the time they figure out what's going on, you could have won the duel by then. However, obviously it does actually make for a bit of an interesting gameplay, because if they manage to just reduce their monsters to the same number of monsters you have, then you just Mystic Mine gets popped. But it's a bit of a cheesy win condition, to be honest. But I tend to use him just to basically rank up into C88, which allows you to do a little bit of burn damage, and if this card has no materials and your opponent's life points are 2000 or less, you win the duel. So again, it's just a nice alternative win condition. To be honest, you're not going to be going into it much apart from going into it just because it's got a bit of a beefy attack. So yeah. As for your main plays, this is what you're going to be maining most of the time. Number 15 Gimmick Puppet Giant Grinder, and number C15 Gimmick Puppet of Giant Hunter. So Grinder, up to twice per turn, can just target and pop a card on field. It can do some burn damage as well, and then Gimmick Puppet Giant Grinder does burn damage regardless, and it pops a monster on field. So Gimmick Puppet Giant Grinder is probably your main play, your main rank 8 that you're going into. Like I said, you typically want to go second in this deck, mainly because that's the best way that this deck functions. So yeah. And then finally we have one Sanafon the Sky Prison and one Dingisu Orchestra of the Evening Star. Dingisu, nothing needs to be said. Sanafon, again, depending on how your game state is, you can actually summon him and lock your opponent out from special summoning from the graveyard. And with how prevalent graveyard effects are, this deck is a nice, this card is a nice inclusion in this deck. So it does actually get a little bit beefy as well, so you can actually use it to your advantage late game, depending on if your opponent's comboed off or not, or even if you've comboed off. So yeah, it is a nice inclusion. So ladies and gents, that is that. Very much a rogue deck, nothing that's going to take you by storm, but it's just a nice refreshing change to have something that plays a little bit different from the meta, because as you can see, Dragon Link seems to be running away from it as we speak. But I do have a remote duel locals coming up this Sunday, so definitely keep your eyes on the channel for a tournament report as well as a deck profile. I've tried to go with something a little bit different, which is, you could class it as meta, but like I said, keep your eyes peeled to the channel and all shall be revealed. Now, as always, we find ourselves at the end of another video. If you did enjoy this content, you know what to do by now. Hit that like button, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I will definitely see you guys on the next video. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.